Okay friends, welcome to part 2 of our video tutorial on assignment 8. In this tutorial I will talk about the data that you will need to use to create your own valuation model for picks in the draft system of the Continental Football League that you're working for. I told you before that I already have this data for you. You just need to click on this case 11 skeleton file, and once you download this file you will see that all of the tables are already entered. So I'll just show you here. So those are the 5 tables that you will need for this assignment. I would like to remind you that once again your ultimate goal is to create a valuation model, some kind of scoring system based on actual data about performance of players. And this is the data that you will need. This data, the collection of this data is driven by some theory. In other words, some of the things that you believe that make players valuable or not. So you capture the information about players, and then you use this information or data to create some kind of scoring system that will allow you to see, which player is valuable and which player is not, and also to compare that scoring system to the one developed by Coach Mike. So once again, this is a reminder of your ultimate goal. And you will need 5 tables to do that. So I'll go through those tables. Now, the first table is relatively straightforward. This is the table that Coach Mike developed for valuing picks, and we discussed it in part 1 of this video tutorial. So basically, under the system developed by Coach Mike, pick number 1 is worth 3,000 points, and then the value of picks decreases as you go from the first pick down to last pick. So the value of the last 100 pick is $100 points, not dollars, which means that this pick is not useless. There's still value attached to it, but it's not nearly as valuable as pick number 1. So this is a standalone table, and this is the table that you can use to generate a valuation chart based on Coach Mike's system. Okay, so I'll close this table. Now the second important table contains information about football players that were drafted. So each row contains draft number, meaning what kind of pick was used to select this player, then round number, in which round this pick was executed or implemented, and then the name of the player. So here we have information about a player whose last name is Stewart, and he was, or she, I guess he was selected based on first pick. So whatever team has the right for the first pick selected Stewart, and that was also a part of round number 1. So in total we have 5 rounds, and each round consists of 5 picks by 20 teams. No, I'm sorry, consists of 20 picks by 20 teams, because we have a total of 20 teams in the Continental Football League. So Stewart was selected first, and then Collins was selected last in the 5th round, and he was selected by pick number 100. So whatever team had this pick selected Collins. So this is very important information. And then draft number is used as a key, as an identifier throughout other tables. Now let's talk about table number 3 in the league. So here you have a draft number for each of the players. So draft number 1 belongs, as you remember, to Stewart. So basically it means this information contains data. This table contains data about about the number of years that each player that was drafted played in the league. So for example, the first player, which is Stewart, he played in the league for year 1, year 2, and year 3. So if he didn't play for one of the years, we would put 0 instead of 1. So here it means that Stewart played after he was picked, after he was drafted in the league. He played year 1, year 2, and year 3. Now this table tells you something about longevity of players, meaning if somebody plays for 3 years without any injuries, without being dismissed, or without being used as a secondary reserve, right? Then it means it's a valuable player. Now, so you'll use this data to create a scoring to calculate points based on the tenure of the player within the league. You can see one pattern as you go from pick number 1 to the last pick. You see more and more zeros. It means that some players, for example, player number 70 who was drafted as a part of the pick number 76, he played the first year and then he didn't play the last 2 years, which means that, well, he wasn't that valuable for the team because something happened. Let's say he got an injury, or he was dismissed, I don't know, because of drug test, or simply his performance declined and he was outside of the league. So it means that this player was not as valuable as this player. So that's what this is what the table in the league tells you. Now let's look at table number 4, starter in the year. Typically each team would have a starting team. Each football team would have like a number of players, way more than they need for one particular game. But the starting team means all the players that start matches, and those are typically the strongest, the most experienced players. So the same information here. Player number 1 was a part of the starter sub-team for 3 years. Now player number 7 wasn't part of the starter team for year 1, meaning, let's say, the coaches were still evaluating him or he lacked experience, but then he started being in the starting team for year 2 and 3. So again, this tells you something about the value of those players drafted. Again, if you go from draft number 1 from Stewart all the way to pick number 100, which is Collins, you see more and more zeros, meaning those players that were drafted at later picks, they were not some of them, they were not included in the starting team for at least one of the years. Some of the years, which again tells you that, well, later picks may not be as valuable as the first picks, because if you go to the first picks, look, those top 5 picks, they were included in the starting team for all 3 years. So that's another table. And then the final table, all-star in the year. So typically each league, each sports league, let's say each football league would have some kind of procedure so that fans can vote for the all-star team, meaning the best players from all 20 teams. So once again, player number 1, Stewart, he was voted to be, one of the most valuable players in the entire league for 3 years. And so was a player with the draft number 2. He was selected for this all-star team in year 1, 2, and 3. Year 1 and 2, but not in year 3. Again, as you scroll down, you see that it's very uncommon for players in later picks to be included in the all-star team. Okay, so this is another dimension of your evaluation model. Basically, your reasoning is that the more the fact whether a particular player was included in the all-star team and for how many years he was included or not included tells you something about the value of the players. But again, a rough analysis tells you that based on this criteria, based on this all-star team selection, players that were drafted in the first picks, they seem to be much more valuable. Okay, friends, so this concludes part 2 of our video presentation on assignment 8. Thank you for listening.